Well fellas, you asked for it, and here it is. This is my first tier list for the guns of Battlefield 1, and today I'm going to be covering the sidearms in the game. Now, coming from BFV, this is a dramatic improvement in variety, both in sheer number of guns and the different kinds of firearms present. While that is very admirable, unfortunately that just doesn't leave a lot of room for everything to be good. With this many sidearms, it seems they felt they could only have so much variation. There are often multiple guns capable of filling whichever your desired role is, which, depending on your tastes, may leave some sidearms completely overshadowed. I'm really gonna have to get into the weeds of these as opposed to the easily generalized subtypes in Battlefield 5. But the good news with this many variations is that you will almost certainly be able to find something that fits your preferences very well. That being said, this is a completely subjective tier list, not only based on stats and performance, but also the appearance and animations of the guns and which ones come in as my personal favorites. I should also note that I have not sunk as much time into BF1 as BFV, so really, take any critical analysis with a grain of salt. That being said, let's get into it with the obvious pick of the game. M1911. Following close to tradition, the 45 automatic has a middling rate of fire at 300 RPM and kills in 3 body shots out to 10 meters. It has a very good TTK in those first 10 meters. With fast reloads, it is efficient on ammo since almost no other semi-autos can kill in 3 body shots. But after those first 10 meters, the TTK starts dropping off pretty harshly for a semi-auto, since it doesn't especially have a high minimum damage, falling in line with all the others of its type pretty quickly. And its fire rate keeps it from being able to pump out lead quickly, plus its significantly higher recoil makes it just less efficient to go for those sidearm kills outside your max damage range. But for those close-range gunfighters who prefer to place fewer shots more consciously, the M1911 may be for you. The M1911 silencer, from what I can tell, doesn't really do anything differently from the original, but if you enjoy a longer profile, like I do, you may get a little bit more enjoyment out of it. B tier. P08 Pistol. The P08 also fires at 300 rounds per minute, but has 30 max damage as opposed to the 1911's 35. It may not be much, but that's the difference between 3 and 4 shots to kill. Yes, it has lower recoil and a higher muzzle velocity, but it never beats the 1911's time to kill, and is obviously slower at close range. If you're looking for something with this kind of damage model that's easier to control, the next gun I'm going to talk about is practically a straight upgrade from the P08. I can find almost no justification for using the P08 pistol. The only use case I can think of is if you specifically want to fight people beyond a 10-meter range, in which case again the next gun is better. Obviously its style is quintessential to the time period, but while I'm using the thing, nothing can overcome the frustration of how diffed it is in BF1. E tier. MLE 1903. The Model 1903 fires at 360 RPM and has an almost identical damage model to the P08. It has the same muzzle velocity and has less vertical and horizontal recoil. The only trade-off for the significant upside of being both faster and easier to control is less ammo availability. Having one less cartridge in the magazine, with about a 0.7 second longer reload on both empty and partial. And the fact that at 35 meters and beyond, the 1903 takes 8 shots to kill instead of 7. How tragic. Even with that fact, due to the fire rate, the Model 1903 has a better time to kill across the board. Again, with shots being easier to hit. The only practical downside is that ammo and reload. Sexy by its nature, but the lack of external features doesn't make it altogether eye-catching. But those slower reloads manage to be some of the most genuine feeling in the game. A practical and lovely low recoil gun, held back only by being middle of the road and a little boring. B tier. C93. Ooh, I love it when the concurrent weapons are easy to compare. It makes everything so simple. So, the C93, despite looking very different from the FN 1903, is quite similar, with the same fire rate and a similar damage curve. It still kills in 4 body shots at max damage, but stays at its slightly lower maximum damage for a bit longer range. Instead of doing 30 damage out to 12 meters, it does 26.5 damage out to 14 meters. But they both take 4 shots to kill out to 16 meters. In fact, at 15 meters, they merge into the exact same damage model. Sure, this makes comparison easy, but at this point I'm wondering why even make the effort to have them be different? They have the exact same TTK at all ranges. All this does is make the 1903 kill in 1 less shot at close range under the circumstances that your target has taken the very specific difference in damage. So okay, that info is bupkis. What do we actually have for differences? The C93 has an extra round, faster reloads, and barely higher muzzle velocity, in exchange for about 17% more vertical recoil. As a low recoil appreciator, I think these downsides are too minor to make it equal in my eyes to the Model 1903. The size of the gun and the movements of the toggle lock are somewhat jarring and distracting, but I'll be damned if I slander the absolute unitism of this design. Still better than the Luger at least. D tier for being near aimless next to the Model 1903. Number 3 Revolver. The first of the revolvers in the game here, it's a classic Smith & Wesson design, sadly lacking a trigger spur, but still one of the most likable looks. As a revolver, the number 3 can kill in 2 body shots at close range, out to 10 meters. Though this good damage deteriorates very quickly, by the 23 meter mark it would take 5 shots to kill, and at max range it only does 13.5 damage, the same as the pocket pistols. Let me be clear, at 41 meters and further, it takes 8 shots. Obviously, it would take a long time to net that kill, making the bold assumption that you hit all shots. Not that you should even be trying at that range, but I want to illustrate how this damage spread is kind of absurd, and most revolvers in the game have similar. They are very fast killers in close range, but fall off to being the slowest. If for some reason you need any more deterrent from trying to push your range, the number 3 has a muzzle velocity of 210 meters per second. For reference, the only small arm in this game with a lower velocity is the Kolibri. It also has a very high horizontal recoil, making it harder to line up repeated shots, and for the cherry on top, it is the slowest firing of the revolvers. This gun has a lot working against it. Generally, it can be described as awful handling, but it is the consistently fastest reloading revolver, a category in which, as we will soon find out, speed is a rare commodity. It's up to you to decide whether the trade-off is worth it, and as much as I like the number 3 aesthetically, this lineup of cons is an all-star team of letdown. D tier. Kolibri. So fellas, you know that outside of the hardest of hitters, I am a big sucker for recoil control, and that is why I am such a fan of the Kolibri pistol. It only has 10% the recoil of the next softest shooting sidearm. It does so while firing at a blistering 450 rounds per minute. This is a hole drilling machine. Well, slowed a bit by the 7+1 capacity and very long reloads. Some would say that the damage is too little, dealing 5 damage out to 8 meters and ramping down to 1, but I say that's a relatively small downside given the very good recoil control. Alright, I can't keep up the bit anymore. I considered playing it straight for this whole segment, but I know there are people who would take my words at face value. So yeah, the Kolibri is a joke weapon, a pretty fun inclusion with unique animations and handling. A dainty little thing, it still identifiably has that early 20th century pocket pistol design, though in this case the term pocket actually includes those found on women's pants. There are 2 chief ways to use the Kolibri if you're dead set on humiliating someone with that kill. Combo it after some damage from a primary weapon, a good candidate is a point-blank shot from most scout rifles, or you could take advantage of the unheard of 5 times headshot damage multiplier, making each shot deal a whopping 25 damage. You can actually kill with 1 mag if you hit them headshots. The aimed recoil is slightly more disruptive than expected, but if you shoot rapidly and hipfire, sometimes the recoil doesn't happen at all. A much more worthwhile joke weapon than the Liberator in all aspects, it's a C tier based on funny points alone. Nagant Revolver. This revolver has a fire rate of 200 RPM and a max damage of 40 with a minimum damage of 23. It has been the tradition in the Battlefield series for revolvers to be capable of killing in 2 body shots. This is in exchange for their low capacity and generally slower handling. This is the case in Battlefield 3, 4, 5, and 2042, and for every revolver except this one, it's the case in Battlefield 1. What is the rationale? There are plenty of other revolvers that fire just as fast or faster that can kill in 2 shots. Is it because it has 7 rounds instead of just 6? Ha! As if that advantage isn't more than made up for by the slowest reload of the already slow gate loaders. Egregiously, the stats claim that this revolver has higher damage than others, and to that I can only ask, by whose standards? With this kind of damage model and fire rate, it's like a further extreme of the 1911 without quite veering into the range of what a revolver should be. With a relatively low damage differential, only taking 5 shots to kill at max range. Very admirable considering how bad this game's sidearms typically are at max range. However, this is offset by the very low ammo availability. The recoil is the lowest of any sidearm that runs under 300 RPM, but this also is ruined by the cocking of the hammer, allowing you to fire before the sights are realigned, unlike the number 3 revolver, meaning you can't even get accurate maximum firing efficiency out of this thing. What can be said in favor of the Nagant Revolver is that its reload animations, while slow, are some of the best in the game. E tier. Obrez Pistol. A super shorty, a mare's leg, machine pistols. Battlefield games always seem to have at least one truly out there pick in the sidearms roster, and this is it for Battlefield 1. It's a shame BFV didn't have something similar, with the well rod being the closest thing. So, a bolt-action pistol, it behaves exactly as a sidearm-grade scout rifle should, complete with a sweet spot. The sweet spot being as close as possible. In the first 10 meters, the Obrez does 100 damage, though the damage zones and multipliers seem to be quite unforgiving, as I frequently end up hitting for 90 or 75 point blank. But when that doesn't happen, you have yourself a one-shot pistol. Its damage drops to 45 minimum damage. In this way, it really seems more appropriate to compare it to a slow miniature slug shotgun. It fires at only 38 RPM, a product of the fact that this thing is literally a minimalist Mosin Nagant. Anyhow, past 32 meters it'll only take 3 shots to kill, but that'll also take you over 3 full seconds to do, so up to you I guess. Any range shorter than that, you're looking to take half a health bar at least every time you shoot. I find it a great tool for poking long when I have a short range primary, or fishing for that one shot. Its muzzle flashes are intentionally pronounced compared to the others, a reference to the Obrez's real-life fireball making ability. Being bolt action, it has more to look at while using, with 2 different animations of working the bolt, and a different reload animation for each capacity of rounds left. I want to leave it in A tier because it's quote, more situational, but it's too unique and it's done too well by me to deserve anything less than S tier. Revolver Mk VI. Firing at 200 RPM like the Nagant, but having a damage curve similar to the No. 3 Revolver. The difference is it has a higher minimum damage, being able to kill in 7 shots past 34 meters. Still not very helpful. Its biggest draw is basically that it is the fastest firing all-class, note that, all-class, gun that can kill in 2 shots and it still reloads fast. I'm obligated to mention the fact that when reloading, the correct amount of spent and unspent cases is shown, but I'm more interested in the depiction of a Bodeo speed loader and the manhandling of the barrel to snap the gun closed. While the Mk VI's vertical recoil and reload time are higher than the No. 3, its horizontal recoil, and by extension its ability to land repeated aimed shots, is very good for a revolver. However, with the exception of the reload speed, there are many other revolvers tucked away in the class-exclusive sidearms that make this gun's stats still look weak. And in particular, there's a medic sidearm that pretty much does the exact same thing but better, and looks very similar to the Mk VI revolver, causing me to almost disregard this one. Don't get me wrong, the top break Webley is a unique design, unless you've also got another gun in the game based on the exact same thing. D tier. Lightning Round. So, each of the 4 base classes in this game have 3 exclusive sidearms, which I alluded to in the last section. For the most part, each of a class's 3 exclusive sidearms will fill the same niches as the exclusive sidearms of another class. It is in these exclusives that you can find your high rate of fire options. These are the Assault exclusive 1903 Hammerless, Medic exclusive Nagant Pistol M1914, Support exclusive Modelo 1915, and Recon exclusive Revolver Stop. Each of these are pocket pistols that fire at 450 rounds per minute and deal low damage, killing in 4 body shots out to 10 meters. Strange that we only see it represented in the exclusives, but it's quintessential to close range high aggression, being faster than the MLE 1903, with the same number of bullets to kill close up, and the only trade-off being a bit of ranged performance. Other than the guns they're based on, what sets these pocket pistols apart from each other? That is an excellent fucking question. Same recoil, vertical and horizontal, same muzzle velocity, same exact damage model on all 4. The website sim.gg tracks 86 different stat categories for each gun in the game. Of those, these 4 guns only differ in 5 redundant categories. They have varied reload speeds, and while all the rest have an 8+1 capacity, the Revolver Stop has a 7+1 capacity, but also deploys 20% faster. That's all. Let me reiterate, if it weren't for the Revolver Stop, the only thing that would statistically set any of these apart is reload speed. I suppose if you want all classes to have the same options, then using these almost reskins is sensible, but no 2 other guns in the game are this similar aside from the actual reskins like the Red Baron P08 and Suppressed 1911. The rest of the class exclusives have more variety. With this state of affairs, it's hard to assign any identity or individuality to any of these, especially because they're not entirely visually impressive either. On a surface level, the 1903 Hammerless is easy to conflate with the other John Browning slide-operated shrouded hammer handgun called 1903. The Revolver Stop is distinctive, but that's not a compliment when distinctive is just code for ugly. Plus, the Revolver Stop auto exists and is much more interesting. At a glance, the Modelo 1915 and Nagant Pistol have the same sort of exposed barrel thing going on, but on any closer inspection they have plenty of features to set them apart. But since the Modelo has the slowest reload speeds of these 4 and the Nagant Pistol has the best collective reload speeds of all sidearms in the game, I'm going to have to give the Nagant Pistol M1914 the higher slot, by the thinnest of thin margins, due to being visually not the worst and being best suited to its role for rapidly pumping out low damage shots. Despite this frustrating arrangement of stats, these 4 are in an excellent class of sidearm, so the Nagant Pistol goes in B tier, while the 1903 Hammerless, Modelo 1915, and Revolver Stop go in C tier. Assault exclusive Gosser M1870. My thoughts on the Gosser can best be summed up by this comment under a Sea and Arsenal video. When the Austro-Hungarian gendarme is after Bosnian Red. It is the big iron of this game. Get out of here, you elitist. I'm a man of the people. Its per-shot damage model is the best in the category, bar 1. Unlike other revolvers, it maintains its ability to kill in 2 shots out to a great range, 22 meters, and its minimum damage is 21, aka only 5 shots to kill. It's one of the best sidearms for versatility and range. It fires at 180 RPM, still beating out the No. 3, but it's gate loading only and has the highest revolver recoil. This is a gun for those with patience and control. One of its many standout features is that it can quote-unquote automatic hip fire. Basically, holding down the fire button shoots continuously. Limited with a fire rate this slow, but neat and potentially helpful. True to this nature, the third-person animation for hip-firing the Gosser revolver shows the player character fanning the hammer. Or so the myth goes. Its hugeness is evident in-game. A big dark beast with an open-top frame and long unembellished barrel. The size of the cartridge is conveyed by the sound they make when loaded. What a great sound. Handling be damned, my man has got the power and the looks. S tier. Assault exclusive Howdah Pistol. When I started playing this game, the Howdah was an early interest of mine due to its design. Assault is the only class to have 2 exclusive sidearms that reach the 2-hit kill threshold. Though in that archetype, if the Gasser is slow and powerful, the Howdah pistol is fast but limited. Indeed, having the very lopsided damage curve matching the Mark VI, but firing 257 rounds per minute, which is, I think, the fastest firing of anything in this game that kills in 2 body shots. I'm sure you can see now why I haven't been very kind to a gun like the No. 3 revolver. Though it does load a bit slower than any of the top-rank revolvers, it's still faster than gate loading. However, you don't get an optimal TTK that fast without some drawbacks. Most obviously, the capacity is only 4 shots. The other one is that the recoil control is very bad, specifically in the horizontal recoil, which is the worst of all sidearms by a good margin. Despite the poor recoil and ammo availability, the aggressive fast-killing potential is there, and the design of the gun is very fun and amusing, with the firing sound very reminiscent of a dog's bark. Using it almost feels like you're challenging yourself for fun, which is of course something I endorse wholeheartedly. B tier. Medic exclusive auto revolver. So this is the gun that basically outdoes the Mark VI in every way that I care about. It almost looks the same, has the same damage model, fires 25 rounds per minute faster, and has less vertical recoil, with the biggest cost being that it reloads a bit slower. The Webley Fosbury auto revolver, as you may be able to tell, isn't like other girls. It's self-cocking, like a single-action semi-automatic pistol. To that end, you can see the upper frame recoiling, sliding along the lower frame and cocking the hammer like a slide. These zigzag grooves are used to rotate the cylinder too. Interesting, right? That definitely helps for style points, and being almost a straight upgrade from the Mark VI makes it, in my opinion, the best of the statistically basic revolvers. But at the end of the day, it is basic. All the other exclusive revolvers are more interesting stat-wise, and that makes Medic's selection feel a little bare. B tier. Medic exclusive C96. And no, I will not call it just the Mauser, because that term is reductive and non-specific. If you want to know what I mean, here are 3 more Mausers that can be found in the game. The C96 can be most closely likened to the P08, and that includes everything I dislike about that gun. 300 rounds per minute and a 4-shot kill out to 16 meters with high vertical recoil. It has a barely higher max ammo for an even longer reload. That reload has substantial problems with realism too. The bolt locks back on its own, including on partial reloads when it shouldn't be possible for the bolt to lock open. And after using a stripper clip, the bolt has to be racked, where realistically the bolt would fall on its own when the clip is removed. The positives would be that the C96 has a high muzzle velocity, 440 meters per second, and less horizontal recoil. So with the understanding that the reloading is much worse, the C96 is a better shooting gun than the P08. That is to say, it's still pretty pointless, but I do feel like less of a clown using it. Its style is even more quintessential than the Luger, with a nice long barrel and a boxy everything else. Maybe this is an odd standard, but it has one of the best looks and feelings for the sprint view model. Oh well, D tier. Also, editor's note, what in the hell is up with this reload bug? The gun can only take 10 rounds for crying out loud. Stop trying to stuff 21 in there. Support exclusive Repetierpistole M1912. This gun is, yet again, like a straight downgrade from the Model 1903. It has the same rate of fire, a lot more vertical recoil, worse ammo availability, and a damage model with 0 significant changes. The only possible upside I can think of is in the visuals, as it is a more interesting looking and functioning semi-auto pistol. There's really nothing more to say. It's just incredible how many of these guns have reached the realm of useless in my eyes. There are 5 pistols that basically have this damage model, and the 1903 is the only one worth using. If you want a 4-shot low recoil secondary, you could either use the pocket pistols, or for more range you could use the Model 1903. The entire other 4 pistols in its class are worse. I'm all for using unconventional weapons that have what others would consider to be strange stat trade-offs, but these aren't trade-offs. They all fill the same niche, only some do it worse, and nowhere is that easier to see than in the Repetierpistole. E tier. Support exclusive Dog Revolver. This pocket cannon is tied with the Howdah pistol for the fastest firing gun that kills in 2 shots, only it has a 6-round capacity but loads slower due to being a gate loader. That alone is an interesting trade-off, but the big dog has the least vertical and horizontal recoil of the secondaries that kill in 2 body shots. Super fast short-range TTK, and they don't even make the shots hard to hit. It's exceptionally good for bursts of damage at usual sidearm ranges, but it has that long reset with the 1x1 reload. It features the player character using the tip of the next cartridge to reset the ejector rod back out the cylinder. Very cool, but I don't recommend doing IRL. Even knowing it's a revolver, the small size almost undersells its power. It's apparent how much of an old world design this is. The one most odd point of its implementation is how much the gun rocks when you hip fire. It's kind of jarring when you're popping them off fast since the muzzle does not seem reset by the time you take a follow-up shot. Oh well, if you choose to cope with the supersized reload times like I do, this is really the best revolver with the typical damage model. A tier. Recon exclusive Mars Automatic. So to start out, the Mars Automatic has the same damage model and rate of fire as the Nagant Revolver. As you may recall, I don't like the Nagant gameplay-wise, but the Mars solves literally all of the problems I had with it. It has a detachable 10-round magazine plus one for the chamber, its sights stay legible for firing, and since it's not a revolver, I'm not disappointed in its inability to kill in 2 shots. Speaking of which, the Mars is the only auto-loading handgun that fires under 300 rounds per minute. Being that it's this slow and has higher recoil than the Nagant, handling may seem harsh for what it is. With a max damage of 40 and a very nice damage curve, it may still only be a 3 body shot kill, but it maintains its ability to do so for a much longer range than the M1911, all the way out to 22 meters, at which point the 1911 takes 5 shots. And having a high minimum damage, the Mars wouldn't take more than 5 body shots to kill even at max range, using less than half its total capacity, which can't be said for any other sidearm. Additionally, it has the highest sidearm accuracy while standing still, and the highest muzzle velocity, at a very impressive 530 meters per second. It's like a 1911 on steroids. It's made for hitting those high damage shots, only doing so at a slower pace. A single follow-up shot from this after a shot from the majority of Scout's rifles would kill at pretty much any range. Massive for a semi-auto, it's the World War I Desert Eagle. I'm sure you can see a trend. I have a penchant for large handguns. With a heavy and metallic firing sound, the slow fire rate leaves plenty of time to admire the moving action and big fireballs. Due to its esoteric yet commanding visual presence and the gameplay niche it fulfills, the Mars Automatic is a favorite. My only regret is that it isn't available to all classes. S tier. Recon exclusive Bodeo 1889. This is the only other revolver that can kill in 2 shots past 10 meters. The Bodeo is like a middle ground between the rest of the revolvers and the Gosser, which you probably wouldn't guess by looking at it. Damage-wise, it is to the rest of the revolvers what the Model 1903 is to pocket pistols, actually even better. So out with it. The Bodeo can make a 2 body shot kill out to 16 meters, and its damage never falls back into line, consistently above every other revolver, taking exactly 1 less shot at any given point past those 16 meters. Its recoil isn't even that bad, no worse than what you'd expect from any of those other weaker revolvers. Not to mention it has one of the faster fire rates at 225 rounds per minute like the auto revolver. It's seriously so good, and it's unique for looks too. Not a trigger guard in sight, hexagonal barrel, and the player character takes advantage of the Abity system to safely rotate the cylinder with the hammer disconnected while loading. It's seriously a surprise standout, only held back from legendary status by the fact it has to contend with the Mars Automatic, and in the court of my opinion, almost nobody ever wins that fight. A tier. Peacekeeper. I have the Gosser revolver in S tier, where it deserves to be, but in truth, that gun is nothing but a pale imitation. The Gosser is simply a Peacekeeper for employed people. Anything the Gosser can do, the Peacekeeper can do better. The Colt single-action army, the greatest handgun ever made. Fires faster, has higher max and min damage, has higher muzzle velocity, looks better, is animated better, and even maintains the trait of full auto hipfire. Its 2-shot kill range is just as long, if you can even call it that, since with its max damage of 60, it's the only sidearm besides the Obrez that can kill in a single headshot. I do not have this gun. My hands are not worthy. I seriously considered docking points for inaccessibility since the Peacekeeper is a right bitch to get your mitts on, but that rarity only makes it more valuable, turning a would-be negative into yet another positive. The Peacekeeper's tier is off the list. It transcends the bounds of mortal ratings. You don't need me to tell you this. It's the envy of all but the most dedicated, a sacred artifact and a monument to the art of gunslinging. Well, I would like to apologize once again for how I really had to get into the minutiae of the weapon stats, and I hope that it wasn't too grating. Of the 22 secondaries in the game, only 6 of them sit outside of a very rigid damage category shared with other guns, or 8 if you want to count the Mars and Nagant as separate from each other since they handle so differently. If so, the rest of the 14 guns are the 4 400 RPM pocket pistols, the 5 moderate speed low damage autoloaders, and the 5 generic revolver damage model guns. So there was a need not only to outline these categories, but catalog the at times minor differences between handguns within them, and also illustrate what set apart the outliers. Truly a difficult gaggle of guns to break down easily. Anyhow, if you're a new viewer, I want to thank you for sticking around to the end. And if you're a returning viewer, I want to thank you for keeping up with my latest upload. My last video was an unexpected runaway hit. reaching numbers that I never even imagined, about 150,000. I'm glad to see that a different from my usual and more experimental video didn't go over poorly, and as of writing I'm at over 3,500 subscribers. It's getting to the point of being hard to understand the fact that I have a following that big. But regardless of whether I understand it or not, I want to thank all of my subscribers for making this all worth it. Thanks for your support, guys. Have a good day. Hey folks, editing room update for ya. As of writing this, I've actually passed over 5,000 subscribers, which feels like a pretty significant milestone, and I'm extremely thrilled that that many individual people have seen my content and wanted more. But I don't want to spend too much time on that, and instead I want to talk about something else. In the time since I wrote the script for this video, I've had quite a bit more experience with the sidearms in this game, just getting the clips you saw in this video. As I said in the intro, I have a lot less time in this game than Battlefield 5, so my opinions are still changing, especially regarding this less used class of weapon. Even some of the weapons I've ranked low have shown their value. The Nagant's low recoil made it feel relaxed and easy to hit shots. As you saw, I was netting back-to-back kills with the No. 3 revolver, probably thanks in part to its fast reload, and the high capacity of the C96 gave me the confidence to spam shots without spastic overcorrection ruining my aim. The point is, no matter what I say, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what works for you, what you like to use, because that's when you're having fun. Alright, sorry for the prolonged outro. See you later, folks.